I'm excited about this panel discussion because this is something that leaders all over the country are living this exact challenge right now. And our listeners get to hear you break it down and hear your wisdom. So let's start it off. Are we ready?
Yeah, let's give it
Okay.
to us.
All right. Let's say we're working with a family owned business struggling with low engagement. The owner knows they need to motivate the team for the new year, but they're not feeling engaged themselves. They're tired, they're drained, they're struggling to rebuild and reestablish focus. How would you guide them through that reset?
Good question.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start off and then we'll see where it goes. I think most owners that I've talked with, when they find themselves in that spot, they've lost their direction. They've lost their reason for why they're getting up in the morning. So I think this is a really great time to look back at why you are in this business and what was the original reason you got in the business and how far off of that track have you gotten, or how close to the track are you, and you just need to nudge a little bit. So that's just a long answer to saying, start with your why. What's the North Star? What's the purpose of your business? Make sure you're excited about that purpose, and then start talking about that purpose with the rest of your team.
Good insight about the lost direction. I want to circle back to that. Are there any common things that you see in your experience that could cause a business owner to lose that direction, that they can have warning signs go off and be like, hey, this is something I need to avoid, or I feel this coming on, now it's time to take a breather? What kind of commonalities do you see when these owners lose direction?
Well, I mean, things like cash flow problems come up. They're having a difficult time managing cash flow. That might take them off the track. Maybe they lost a key employee. That could take them off the track. One that I recently, a couple of years ago, we had a customer who lost a major customer of theirs, and they represented a significant portion of their business. That took them off track. So any disruption to what, I don't know, Brandy, what would you call it? Just the business norm, whatever norm is, and owners are feeling comfortable, and then all of a sudden a curveball comes in.
I think it's that for sure. Then I almost kind of think about it as like a very slow leaking faucet, where it's just like something has been changing in the business very slowly over maybe even a span of years. And it's like, you can feel it, that everyone's not as in the zone, or maybe the business is not where it used to be. You don't exactly know what to do about it. Maybe it's external factors, changes in the market, changes in the use of maybe your product or service, something like that. And you feel like I've tried everything to kind of get back on top, and you just haven't been able to get there yet, and you just feel stuck. And I think that really leads to feeling like, oh my gosh, like I don't know where to go from here. I think that's a lot of times too where we find our clients, especially in the beginning, is like they know that something's not right. They don't exactly know what that is. And they just are desperately seeking someone to be like, this is it.
Right.
This is what you have going on, and this is what you need to do to fix it.
And I think sometimes what you see is there are personal issues in their life that they haven't dealt with, and they dwell on that perhaps rather than focusing on the business. And so you need to really address those types of issues, and that's where I think some of Rob's one-on-one coaching is very valuable and beneficial to them to really address the things that are getting in the way of running a business. And so once, like Rob said, you got to make sure that you're still headed the same direction you thought you were heading, where your North Star is. And so just to get them back on track and pull them back into the center of the road and make certain that they get invigorated, because it's hard to really get people behind you when you don't know where you're going.
I hear a theme that a lot of the things is a lot of the pain points and issues that could cause disengagement or lack of motivation to be internally with the business. Jen, you started touching about some external factors from the business, particularly with the individual, the owner. Are most of the issues that cause this disengagement internally with things operating inside, like the key loss of employee, cash flow issues, or do you guys see any other issues with maybe personally within the owner and outside of the business?
Yeah, I was going to note one more thing that I think we often see, especially in dealing strictly with family owned businesses, is some of that disconnect can come from, especially if you're got two generations working in the business. One of them remembers their purpose and their why, and maybe the direction of that why is changing, or the next generation has an idea of where they would like to take the business and it doesn't align with the founder. And so that oftentimes too creates a lot of disengagement, because maybe both parties just go, I'm tired of battling about it. I want to stick with being a family here. I can't keep fighting that fight. And then that leads to a little stagnation in the business, because it's ultimately kind of stuck. Who is leading the business? Who's been, assigned to chart the direction? It often can lead to disengagement.
And I think, just to make the point that Brandy is making, is that sometimes you have two people trying to lead the company, and you can't. You have to have a leader, and everyone needs to get in line behind that leader, and they just need to find a way. If they can't, they need to make certain that everybody's on the same train, traveling to the same place, moving in the same direction toward that North Star. And just that sometimes is what gets in the way, Bryce.
Jay, I'd love to hear from you on how you would guide a business owner to rebuild their energy and reestablish focus as they move into the year.
Well, my only example of that was that in 2010, I joined a company that was founded in 1949. It was a family business that, so they'd been around for quite some time. And while I was there serving as the president and CEO, we passed our 70th year. But what had happened is that all the family members weren't participating in the same way. And one had been aging in place, if you will, and I think they really just lost energy. The second generation hadn't moved in to take over yet and wasn't really active. The siblings of the existing management didn't feel they were being communicated with, and they weren't sure where they stood in terms of ownership and so forth. So despite all the good things about the business, that they needed really just some new approach to do the same thing that was successful. And that's pretty difficult to find sometimes. But after a few months, we managed to just get everybody in the same room and get the management reconfigured in a way that was working. So most of it was simple communication that wasn't taking place because they got too used to doing the same thing all the time.
I agree, Jay. I think that's one way to break out of the disengagement, is to have structured communication, where it's a perfect time at the beginning of the year to bring your team together and start talking about, what do we stand for? What are the values that we hold near and dear to our heart? What is our overall purpose and direction? Just starting to reaffirm your purpose, your vision, and your mission, I think really starts invigorating the team a little bit more. And to me, I know, Brandy, you talked a lot about this in the strategic workshops you do. It's not so much about the words that you put on a piece of paper and put on the wall. It's about the discussion that goes in amongst the team members about what those words mean to them, and consensually get to a unified agreement as to the direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can get AI to write your words all day long, but if you don't know how to actionize them.
Right. Yeah, you have to live it instead of just putting it on a piece of paper.
Now, do you suggest that there's a certain time of the year you do this? Is it the beginning of a new year? Is it a feeling? If maybe you do it 1/1 the new year, and then maybe June, July, halfway through the year, you're starting to have these same feelings. Is it good to go attack it again? and put it off? Or what's thoughts about timing? And
My own judgment on that would be that obviously it might be different for each company, but I think one way to get it started is to meet quarterly. That's a good time to review what's happened in the previous quarter and what are we doing that we shouldn't be doing. And as Rob suggested, what are our core reasons for being in business and what are we trying to do to be successful? And it usually something pretty simple. But I think that what I did in that particular case was because they weren't meeting regularly and we just started meeting regularly. And I think that got people re-energized and felt like they had a place to communicate with.
I had a client one time that had a 15-minute meeting every morning, and every morning they made certain that they all knew what the direction was. If anybody had any issues, anybody had any trials or tribulations, then they brought it up, and if necessary, then they could meet offline after the meeting. But at least they all knew they were traveling in the same direction and that no one was having any difficulties, and so that seemed to have been valuable for them.
Yeah, I agree, Jan. What you and Jay are talking about is setting, we call it the rhythm or the cadence of a business. And so Price, yeah, I think at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, there should be time devoted to annual planning. But then there should be a weekly leadership team meeting that's focused on the priorities and accountability. There probably should be monthly one-on-one meetings. There needs to be these QBRs or quarterly business review meetings. That's the way to maintain engagement and enthusiasm, as long as those meetings line up to the overall purpose of the company and major decisions can be connected to the purpose of the company. That rhythm or cadence will really strengthen your leadership habits.
And if you can convey it with a story, because if you just get up there and be like, okay, now we need to check the box. It's the time of the year when we read the message, read the vision, read the mission, make sure everyone raises their right hand and says, yeah, I get it, I agree. Go spend that time, go spend that hour yourself trying to figure out how to get excited and convey the message to the team instead.
Yeah, it's got to connect. I mean, people, you have to get that message connected to your daily activities.
Yeah.
When you make a key hire, for example, how does that hire line up with the overall strategy of your company or the long-term purpose of your business? Or when you make an acquisition or when you make a divestiture, how does that line up to the overall strategy of the business? That, I think a lot of times leaders forget to make that connection. To think Jay or Jan, one of y'all were talking about, you got to live it every day. Yeah, because if the leader's not living it every day, people will follow their leaders. If it's not important to the leaders, then it's not going to be important to them.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, I know you're about to say something.
The only thing I would follow up with is one thing that people get tired of is too many meetings, particularly when meetings aren't meaningful. So if you're just meeting because it's Tuesday, the first of the month, that's not a good thing. But if you can, as Jan suggested, if you can keep things fresh and there's something to talk about, that's what you should be doing.
I think that's a great point, Jay. Our segment time is almost over, and I want to hit this question to hear what you guys have to say. You have great insights about how to keep your teams, maybe your executive leadership team, energized and on track, remember? But who does the owner go to? I mean, what does the owner do when they're feeling all this? I mean, there's nobody calling meetings for him to re-energize him or her as they move forward. What can the owner do, seek, or turn to when they're feeling this way, when they have nobody else supporting them and they've been pouring into everybody underneath them? Who can they look up to? Who can they talk to? What advice do you have for these owners feeling this way?
Yeah, I was going to say that's one of the critical areas where the owners need to seek out outside counsel. And by counsel, I mean maybe some executive coaching. If they don't feel comfortable with executive coaching, maybe even just to talk to a friend who is in a similar type of business or leads another company. But the real key is that they really need to seek out someone who could do some executive coaching for them to get them back on track.
Thank you, Jan. Rob, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I think if they have an executive coach, that's a good place to start. A lot of our clients will have advisory boards. That's probably where I would go to. I know when I was a CEO, I had advisory boards. I had an executive coach. I even also had a fiduciary board. So those board members, particularly some independent board members, are a good resource. There's also some peer groups that these individuals can join and be a part of. And I would be trying to find peers that have been in this situation before that can give you some good advice. And sometimes it's just being able to be listened to. It's very lonely at the top. When you're a CEO, you really don't have that ability to just be vulnerable and talk about your issues and concerns and get some input on your ideas. So we always encourage our business owners to, as Jan said, seek outside counsel and put qualified outside counsel. Sometimes your barber is not going to give you the best advice.
Yeah, find somebody that is in a similar position. I think a similar position to you, someone that's been there before and is through it, kind of a couple of perspectives, and just know that you got to put your head down and do the work, that it's not going to fix itself. I think I definitely fell into that trap of thinking like, oh, time will fix this, time will heal this. No. It often gets worse with that mentality. And so knowing that you got to put the work in and you're going to have to do something different, and that is uncomfortable, but it's possible.
Well, thank you, everybody. This has been a great Inside the Issue segment of our podcast today. You gave us all and the listeners practical, real-world thinking that every family business needs to hear going into the new year.